Hello everybody, welcome to Clanbook Retrospective. Alright, here's the deal. I've been doing this for over a year now, and I've covered just about every World of Darkness game there is, Old World of Darkness and New World of Darkness. There's still a few out there I haven't touched upon, but there is a really big question that tends to be looming over me, over the past year, now, into the future. What do I do about Vampire the Masquerade? Vampire the Masquerade is probably one of my favorite games, if not my favorite game of all time. It's definitely in the top 3, all things considered. So, regardless of my personal opinions for it too, the game is iconic. It's one of the biggest games of all time. It's right up there with Dungeons & Dragons. I mean, Dungeons & Dragons is always going to take the top spot as far as cultural impact is concerned, but whenever we're talking about the rest of the pack, I'd say that Vampire the Masquerade is number 2, and then everybody else can fight over number 3. So, I was sitting here thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to really tell everybody what is Vampire the Masquerade? Kind of go into it, explore it. I mean, is it really worth just a 10 to 15 minute video just going over Vampire the Masquerade? I think there needs to be a little bit of a build-up, a little bit of a preamble to build into it. So here's the thing. Vampire the Masquerade, of course, similar to D&D, has extra books. Books on mythos, books on story, whatnot. And over the time, they have released clanbooks. Books specifically going over the history and the culture of these various clans. And it's really interesting because they go at it from the clan's point of view. So I figured, what better way to really showcase Vampire the Masquerade, as well as give a really good preamble to Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition that's about to come out, than actually going in and kind of going over these clan books and what exactly are the 13 clans that make up Vampire the Masquerade. So, with that being said, this is Clanbook Retrospective, where we are going to go over the 13 clans of Vampire the Masquerade, and that is going to lead into a Crit or Miss video on Vampire the Masquerade as a game, as well as Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. What I love most about these books is the fact that each of them is written from a clan history perspective. I love the mythos of Vampire the Masquerade, mainly because it is this winding labyrinth of false turns, half-truths, and lore all cobbled together. There is really no definable conclusion, and it allows the storytellers to kind of make up the history as they see fit. I mean, there is certainly a meta sort of conclusion, a meta history, but the point is that each of these 13 clans plus have their own version of their history, how they play into it, and how it is completely skewed, and how their culture sort of morphs and changes it. I love the fact that the history is just so blurred, it's so gray. It gives storytellers an opportunity to fuck with mythos. And from a character's perspective, it gives credence to alternative views to the point of where some people might legitimately even believe that, let's say, the Assamite story is the right one, and the Cappadocians, or Cain, or whatever. It's to the point where even the players themselves are not entirely sure about what the mythos is, and will argue it with other players. So where do I start, though? I have 13 clans, and I mean, there's a variety of different places where I could start. But I thought, all things considered, I think that the best place to start, and I have an older version of the book on hand right now, would be to start with my favorite clan, 100%. Like, this was the clan that I made my first character in. This is the clan that has always kind of stuck with me the most. While, like, other clans have kind of come up and been a little bit more, more relatable or a little bit more fascinating, this is the one that I always go back to, and it is Clan Brujah. Brujah is, well, of course, one of the 13 clans of Vampire the Masquerade. The Brujah are known to be the rebel rousers and the brute force users of the Vampire the Masquerade game. They are known to be big, strong, and perpetually shouting about something. The Brujah are often considered to be the rebels with or without a cause. Regardless, they're the ones who are kind of there to get riled up, to get rallied, to get like the forces moving. They are the ones that gets the crowds going, works the magic, gets people ready to actually like take over the government or, lead this rally against this politician or something like that. So, no matter what, the Brujah are always ones who are going to fight for their ideals and beliefs, whatever those ideals and beliefs might be. The clan is based on the Joel Schumacher movie The Lost Boys, and as such, they are split into two different categories, the iconoclast and the idealist. In The Lost Boys, the majority of the movie focused on a young man's relationship with 4 young, male, leather jacket-wearing vampires who took no shit, vandalized, and generally lived a carefree and devil-may-care lifestyle. However, their sire, the one that turned them all into a vampire, was more of a suit-wearing, smooth-talking lawyer type who guarded over his quote-unquote lost boys and constantly looked for a mother for them to have a cohesive family. Because if there is one thing that vampires truly prize above everything else, it is to maintain the traditional nucleus family structure. As such, Clan Brujah is split into two categories, as I said earlier, the iconoclast and the idealist. The iconoclasts are much more of the common one, and they're the ones that are really more well known in the mythos. They're the leather jacket-wearing ass-kickers. They are known to populate most cities, and are also known to be the most populous of all the clans. Just about every city sports at least 1 to 10 Brujah in their midst, and for large cities it can be up to 75 or 80. No matter what, you can always find them around political rallies, raves, rants, debates, riots, and so forth. They tend to have a strong belief in revolution, though they aren't always in agreement on what that means. Idealist Brujah are the opposite. They are, first and foremost, tend to be mainly found in Europe, and hold on to the idea that the Brujah used to be a clan of warrior scholars. They do believe in reform and change, but it is a much more top-down approach, compared to the others in their clan that has more of the leather jacket, let's have the revolution, and, down with the bourgeoisie sort of deal. Idealist Brujah tend to look a little bit more like Ventru than their Brujah counterparts. They still do believe in some clan unity, however, and will often align with iconoclast Brujah as a means of a symbiotic top-down relationship that sometimes benefits the top more than it does the bottom. The way that we kind of end up with the Brujah the way they are today is a long history of tragedy, all things considered, starting with the first city of Enoch, moving to the fall of Carthage at the hands of Rome, moving into the Dark Ages and the creation of the Camarilla and the Sabbat, and then seeing the idealists and the iconoclasts just continue to split more and more apart, to the point where one is the suit-wearing Brujah, and the other one is the leather jacket-wearing rebel-rousing rabble, as they're nicknamed. So, let's go into the history a little bit. Let's kind of dissect a couple of things in here, and really get to what makes a Brujah a Brujah. Alright, we've gone this far without talking about it. It's time to address the elephant in the room. It's time to chuck the skeleton out of the closet. It's time to open up a little bit. You see, for those unenlightened by Vampire the Masquerade, Brujah is what is known as a usurper clan. And there are, out of the 13 clans of Vampire, 4 of them used a variety of means to usurp a previous clan, the most common which was diablerie, or absorbing a vampire's essence into them as a means of gaining power. As such, the Brujah tribe that we know today that is split between idealist and iconoclast is actually the usurpers of what was originally the true Brujah. And if you thought the idealists and the iconoclasts were a little different, you haven't seen nothing yet whenever I start talking about the true Brujah. It is unknown on what the Brujah antediluvians' name was, as it is the case for several of them. Most of the time they are simply known as Brujah, or the Brujah antediluvian. They have also been known as Ilias, as well as Troil the Elder. The name is not well known. However, what is well known, at least as the true Brujah are going to tell it, is that the Brujah antediluvian was diablerized by their progeny Troil. When this happened, there was a clan split, and the Troil descendant Brujah became the Brujah that we know today. the strong-willed, hot-headed vampires that we know, the ones who are going to frenzy at the drop of a hat. The true Brujah, however, the ones that still survived after this diablerie, were cold, callous, calculated, and devoid of a lot, if not all, emotions. Out of the 4 usurper clans, the Tzimisce, the Giovanni, the Tremere, and the Brujah, out of those 4, the Brujah tend to be the most fun to talk about, and the reason being for that is because the true Brujah, the original Brujah before our rebel-rousing, angry Brujah, have time-altering powers. Of course, all surviving usurp clans are pissy, but out of all of them, the true Brujah tend to be the ones that have the greatest grasp on the situation and can tend to throw back a whole lot of pain towards the Brujah's direction. This is because whenever the Brujah have fallen as far as they have, the true Brujah have remained secretive and in the shadows. Most of them are members of the Tal Mara, or the True Black Hand. It's kind of like the Vampire Illuminati for those not enlightened. The true Brujah are more terrifying power players in all of the games. They have OP stats, they have powers to boost. So these rebel who have fallen so far due to this one major event are easy pickings for these time-altering demigods. And the event that I'm talking about is the Fall of Carthage. Talk to any Brujah, even in modern nights, and they will talk about the events that mark the end of them as a power player and the downward spiral into the clans yelling rebellion at the top of their lungs. The event is the Fall of Carthage. Carthage was known to be a grand experiment for the Brujah. It was a utopia where humans and vampires lived in harmony in what is now modern-day Tunisia. Now, granted, other vampires will tell you a different story, that the city was infested with Bali, which are basically like demon vampire boogeymen, and human sacrifice galore. But to the Brujah, it was paradise, where truth and justice reigned supreme. However, as you know, a vampire, nothing in this world can ever stay good for a vampire. So, Carthage was destroyed in 146 BCE by Rome after their 3rd sacking of it. At this point now, it's nothing more than a pile of ruins, and the Brujah have never gotten over this fact. Things were never the same for the Brujah after that. While they were still considered high clan in the Dark Ages and held the warrior scholar moniker of their forebears, this went forward through the Victorian Age as well. Tragically, though, a rift began to form in the Brujah. This rift, perpetuated by the creation of the sects such as the Camarilla, Sabbat, and Anarchs, turned into the modern-day idealist and iconoclast that we see today. With the iconoclasts embracing a passion and furious righteousness, they became much more populated and also became the most populated clan in all of Vampire. And as such, whenever it comes to the modern night vampire, the Brujah are a fractured clan. The iconoclast fight for their ideals, however, they're not exactly in agreement with what those ideals are. Rants and raves go on for days, weeks, months of Brujah just fighting back and forth with one another. The idealists tend to remain sequestered in their homes and whatnot, some in the US, some in Europe, and mainly just kind of relive the glory days of Carthage whenever they actually were power players. And then you have the true Brujah, always lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. The Brujah become the most populated clan, became one of the most interesting ones, as they continue to grow, and they continue to embrace and embrace and embrace, and with each embrace, they sort of just lose a little bit more power. That marks pretty much the end of the history for the Brujah, condensed in a lovely little video. That, in a nutshell, is what a Brujah is and where a Brujah comes from. Now, most days, whenever you want to create a Brujah character, you tend to be much more of the one that can fight and can rally. They tend to be the ones on the front line. They tend to be the biggest fighters. If you want to go by the sort of meta, DPS, tank, so on and so forth, they're definitely the tanks of the group, as they're there to soak a lot of damage and do a lot of fighting. But with that being said, I'm going to conclude this video with thank you all so much for watching, and please, like, subscribe for more. Also, I know for a fact that in this video, but about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, I could not cover everything with the Brujah. So if there are some things that you feel like needs to be elaborated on, if you feel like needs to be kind of gone into, add them in the comments below, and that way whenever someone comes to look on this video, they can go into the comments and see a little bit more information that was not present in the video. Also, if you really want to see a clan mentioned out of the 13 clans, I guess now 12 that have not been covered, please comment that as well, that you'd like to see the next clan to come up. Right now I'm not sure which one I'm going to do next, so if I get a lot of requests for a certain clan, I'll definitely put that one at the top of my list. Thank you all so much for watching.